Welcome everyone to this episode of Soul Sunday, and I am here with Headmaster Betty May Glenn. Hello, Betty May.
Hi, everybody.
Today, I want to talk about something that, you see all these really funky quotes about recently, and that is, and in fact, I wrote my own quote about this. I just remembered this week about this place of uncomfortable, and that everything magical happens when you step out of your comfort zone. And for me personally, I really quite love that. I love stepping into the energy of the unknown and just like playing around in that. And I've come to realize that that's not actually, my husband is the opposite. Is one of his favorite frames of reference is really love comfortable. Right? So I thought today you could help shine some insights in this whole area so that we could look at it from a different perspective, because that's what you do.
Yes, I would love to do that, especially with this topic. It's becoming a real favorite of mine. I'm, again, my guy, Dr. Joe, he's really inviting me into that model of falling in love with the unknown and actually seeking it out and wanting more. And really, we know that when we're living in the known, we're living in the past. And a big piece of what I've been working with myself on and with people who are coming to see me is to create the you that you'd like to be in 2 years. And so the me that I want to be in 2 years is something completely different than who I have been being habitually over the last however many years, right? So we tend to just have this habit that keeps going and going and going and going and going, and we unfold basically into the same version that we've been over the last several years, unless we're consciously creating our future, consciously changing something, consciously stepping into the unknown, the unpredictable, right? So when we're in the known, we're in the past. When we're in the unknown and unpredictable, we're kind of present and leaning into the future. We're like, what's next? What's next? What's next? It's kind of a juicy place to be. It's known and predictable. And I get it. Like, people really desire to be in the known because it's very safe. They know what's going to happen. They can predict it. Some of us are bored to death with that model. It's the Newtonian model versus the quantum model. So the quantum model for me is where all the juice lies. But the Newtonian model has richness because you've done it, so you know how to do it, and you can keep doing it, and you can keep doing it, and you can keep doing it, and it's probably going to work to a certain degree, and it might work well, actually. Whereas being in the quantum model, in this new, like, unlimited possibilities, whereas the known is limited possibilities. So the Newtonian model, the known is limited possibilities, where the unknown is unlimited possibilities. So for me, it's just juicier.
Right.
I can't say it's like better, but it's just juicier to live in that, like, unfolding of, like, who am I unfolding into? It's just so rich and exciting. And it's like in this quantum model, it's as if we're really creating ourselves in this next version of ourselves. We're not at the effect of what's happening to us. When we're at the effect of what's happening to us, rather than causing an effect, creating this next version of ourselves, it's a very different feeling. And I'm trying to really be so specific about not making one wrong and one right, because I really don't feel that. They are just very different ways of being, ways of creating in different ways. And for me, it's almost like I just can't do the old Newtonian model anymore. I love the juice of the creative, and there's lots of room for failure. Right?
How do we, yeah, for sure. Yeah. How do we step into that, though? How do we, if our norm has been to focus on the predictable and comfortable, how can we step into a new way of being and thinking?
I love the question. It's so great. And it's really, I'm really at the peak of doing, like, of working with that myself. So I've just come through shingles, right? So I did this whole thing of, here's who I want to be in 2 years. And it's written out. I'm very clear about it. It's happening, it's starting to happen. And I did not have get shingles on my list.
You didn't? Why not?
But I did have things like becoming more aware, right? Like that's something I deeply desire. I had something of, I want gratitude to be my normal day-to-day state. I know when I'm in gratitude, I'm in receivership. And when I'm in receivership, I'm just able to receive more and more of all the richness that life has to offer me. And so these were the kinds of things. I had a whole list of those kinds of things. Well, when I got shingles, I didn't have shingles on my list, but so many of the things that I was asking for showed up. And that wasn't 2 years, that was a few months.
Wow.
It's unpredictable. It's not in the way that I would have expected at all. Completely unknown, completely unpredictable. But I'm desiring to get into the unknown more. I'm desiring to have this unpredictable life. It's juicy for me to just to experience that. And so, we ask for so for me, I asked for what I desired, and then I watched to see what life was giving me. And then in that experience, I can lean more into, it's like, okay, here it is. I asked for it and here it is. Not in the way I would have expected, not in the way that I, might hoped for or wished for or wanted. And yet the richness of it, for me to go through what I went through, it's like, it gave me more richness than taking the easy street, let's say. Right?
Well, I guess it's, as you're talking to, I'm back to that, one of our favorite words to talk about, which is judgment. Then to have the openness of what comes versus the judgment of what comes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Key point, Lori. And really that Newtonian model is all about survival. And the quantum model is about thrival and creation.
Ooh, I like this word thrival.
Yes.
Thrival. Yeah. Kind of like tribal.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's all about thrival.
Yeah. Thrival and creation. So when I was in shingles, I was really in a space of just surviving.
Right.
Like I could barely do much. Like calling girlfriends, no. Like having social stuff, no. Nothing like that was happening. I was just surviving. And it's interesting because, my guy, Dr. Joe, I always talk about Dr. Joe. He talks about how most of us are functioning in a state of thrival at least 70% of the time. And sorry, did I say thrival? I meant survival. Yeah. He's talking about we're functioning from survival at least 70% of the time. And I was kind of not so sure. I don't argue with Dr. Joe very much, but I'm like, I'm not just surviving. Blah, blah, blah. When I really was in a state of survival, I got so much compassion for people who live their lives there. Like that is not a fun place to be, just surviving, just on that day today, just trying to get through the day, just surviving. And I thought, like, I'm just getting a taste of it here while I'm in this state of being. And it, like, imagine living day after day after day after day after day in that state. Like, wow, that's a tough life. That is such a tough life. And so really it kind of expanded my heart to be in a greater state of compassion. And as I moved through the survival into more like thriving and creating and feeling so uplifted from being in that way of being, I remember as I was coming out of it, it was, nicer weather was coming, and Andrew and I were out raking, and there's a lot of raking on our property. And I have
there is.
tell myself, okay, so one thing I really want to be aware of is not to overdo, right? I'm starting to feel a little better. I don't want to go out there and like overdo everything and knock myself back. And so I went out and I worked for a little while, and then I said, I think that might be it for me for today. And I went in the house and I laid down for 20 minutes. And as I laid there and really paid attention to my body, just did some body scans. Where am I tight? Where am I not? Am I really tired? Or am I not? Like, I wasn't even really, like, I was so trying to be so attentive to not overdoing that I really had to pay attention, like, what is really happening here with me? And as I laid there, I thought, you know what? I felt pretty darn good. I got back up after 20 minutes. I went back out and I said, I'm good. I have more juice. I have more gas. I can keep going. And so Andrew was very happy about that because we could kind of finish everything off together. And that was nice too. Like we like working together in that way. So,
that's interesting though, because that's, again, we influence ourselves ahead of even having the experience.
Yes.
It's almost that anticipation of, I'm going to be tired potentially, back to magnetizing that in if we're not really being aware of what's truly happening.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so it's so curious to me, like, did I like create a bit more tiredness than I
Right.
was, or did I really require 20 minutes of lying down?
Right.
Right. And I don't have an answer. It's
Right.
just an interesting, like,
Very
oh, it
interesting.
took me only 20 minutes to kind of like
Re-energize.
re-energize,
Mhm.
whatever, and go back, and I felt good. So
Mm.
I don't know. It's just I feel like I'm up on a little bit of a tangent on that one,
But what I mean, at least you didn't affirm the I'm tired. You
exactly.
kept an openness
Yeah.
to, and I think that's a great lesson for me, I know for sure, and I believe people that will be listening, is that because it can be easy to get caught in the trap of reaffirming the initial feeling, right? I feel tired, and so
Yeah.
now I'm going to lean into the tiredness, and now, wow, surprisingly, I feel even more tired, right? Instead of just an openness to whatever's coming.
Well, it reminds me of a previous conversation that we had on video about feelings
Mm-hmm.
and how important it is to know about feelings. And so, you know, if I'm being honest, I kind of had to go and lay down to really, really look at that.
Right.
Right. So once I was lying down and I was scanning my body, I was really seeing how I really felt. I wasn't just assuming I was tired, so I need,
Mm-hmm.
or exhausted or burnt out or whatever the thing was. It's like, okay, how am I really feeling? Like, just
Mm-hmm.
taking that pause. It's so rich when we remember to do that,
Mm-hmm.
to really notice. And sometimes when there's tired, and you do allow yourself just to lay down and be tired instead of fighting against the tired, which is what
Mm-hmm.
many people
Mm-hmm.
do, myself included. Oh,
Right.
I just got to get groceries before I just got to do this. I just got to, so you
Yeah.
push, and it can kind of eat up the energy.
Mm-hmm.
That if you just said, oh, I'm just going to like be tired. How tired can I get right now? Can I be completely tired? And then it's like, okay, done. Okay, what's next?
Nice. I love how you over exaggerate things to just make it more powerful in our minds to connect with it. That's really cool. So
And
that was a really great, sorry, go ahead, Betty May, got another point.
just while we're on that Newtonian model versus quantum model, it ties into that, what we were just talking about feelings again. So in the Newtonian model, there's a belief that life is happening to me. There's a belief that my thoughts and emotions have no effect on outer reality. Has nothing to do with it. Whereas in the quantum model, it's like life is created by you, and your thoughts and emotions have a direct effect on your outer reality. So again, just referring back to a previous conversation that we had, like when you know what you feel and that's what you want to create more of, it actually starts to build those neural pathways and it magnetizes it in. So just
Mm-hmm.
again, just the difference between the quantum model and the Newtonian model, and how juicy I'm really just finding the quantum model and playing in that, and playing with my people that I'm working with in that. And it's just, there's an aliveness to it that's so rich. So
I love that. Thank you so much for the perspective. And my favorite, so it's Thrive.
I said thrival.
Thrival.
Yeah.
See,
Versus
it's so, even that, just the shift in my thinking of the thrival and creation.
yeah.
That's where we're going to step into.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so fun.
It's so fun. So let's all keep moving towards that. And thank you so much, as always, for your time today on Soul Sunday. We'll talk soon, Betty May.
Oh, bye, everybody.